So my name's Sunday. I usually start with, hello, it's me. And I've got there's a panel of us talking about, well, actually, this is the second one that we've done around abuse. And we've had a bit of a long gap because I think I don't know about you, but I felt it was quite a hot potato, quite a difficult subject to talk about. So we've thrown ourselves in the deep end again, and we've got the same lovely people all together to talk about the effects of abuse. And yeah, and let me just tell you a little bit about the Silver 10. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you'll find that there's loads of recordings of these panels where wise women are coming together to talk about the stuff that we've learned in our life and our experiences and putting it into a place and stepping into our elderhood. So we're practicing in being wise elders, and something that I think the Silver Tent embodies really well. It's full of women who are challenging the myth of the older woman. So as we go into our third age, whatever you call it, that we participate in life instead of perhaps disappearing like previous generations might have done. So before we launch into our talk tonight, I'd just like to invite us all to share who we are, where we are, and what we love doing in our life right now. So who would like to kick us off? Yeah, Janet.
Hi, okay. Hi, I'm Janet Powers. I'm a life and leadership coach, and I'm really interested in empowering women and supporting women who've been in abuse. In fact, I'm volunteering at the moment with a local group that are doing a series of workshops about abuse. So I find this really rewarding, and just like Sundy and I were discussing earlier, one way or another, I think all of us have experienced some sort of abuse or even been abusive, even if we haven't realized it at the time. So I think this is going to be a really good discussion. Oh, and I'm in Wales. I forgot to say that. Okay.
Thanks, Janet.
I'll go next. Hi, my name is Lucy Jordan. I'm living in Greece. I'm English, but I'm living in Greece. And at the moment, I'm just a human trying to get through every day in this increasingly crazy world. I'm an artist, various disciplines, painting, and most recently paper flowers. I'm also a regression therapist and an animal communicator, flower essence practitioner, amongst many things. Yeah, I'm here to add what I can to this discussion around abuse, and today it's the effects of abuse. Very pleased to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. Jump in now. So my name is Lorna, and I'm a champion for change. I'm now a catalyst for change as well. What I love to do. Well, right now I love to be doing not a lot, but like Lucy there, I'm just like a human. But I have many hats. I have quite a lot of modality hats that I can put on to help to other people, the other humans. And right now I'm in a phase of transition and wondering where to go next. And through my own journey with this hot potato topic, abuse, I wanted to be here to continue with the conversation and the effects. And yeah, let's see where it takes us. Thank you. Thank you, Sundy.
Lorna.
Janet and Lucy.
Yeah, my name's Sunday, and I live in Ilkley, West Yorkshire in England, and I like talking. I love communication, and I'm a relationship coach, and I specialise in estrangement. So those disruptions that happen typically in families and specialising in adult children with parents, adult children who have chosen to remove themselves sometimes from whole families, but sometimes just from one parent. And that is it's my own experience as well. So yeah. And so that, like I said, this is the second talk that we've had around abuse. And I think it brought quite a lot of stuff up for us talking about it. And so today we're talking about the effects on our body, mind and soul. And we've got a few questions that we're going to answer too. But I thought, because we'd had a chat before and we talked, I don't know whether we actually defined what abuse is. So, and I had a little look today, and I'm sure we've all got our own definition, and maybe that's where we start today, that we take our own explain our own definition of what we feel abuse is. So again, who would like to start with that?
So shall I say some things?
Yeah, go for it, Janet.
Okay, so thanks. Yeah, I had a big think about this when we were getting ready for this panel, and there's many aspects of abuse, and some of them I think becoming clearer now in law and with women and well, women more than men, but men too, of course. I think one of the bottom lines is that if there's an abuser, the person being abused is not treated as an equal. They're not respected. The abuser is not understanding quite often how it's hurting with what they're doing. I think that's a big thing. And a lot of it seems to be to do with the abuser wanting control in some way, you know, either by using fear and threats, coercion, manipulation, even gaslighting, or even worse, like physical abuse and harassment, that sort of thing. So many aspects of it. And I'm getting a bit older now and I haven't experienced this, and I hope not to, but you know, even elderly people get abused by younger adults, as well as younger children being abused by adults. So it's a really big subject, I think, that we're considering here, you know. So that's my kind of overview of it at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. It's something I've been thinking a lot about. You know, what is the definition of abuse? I haven't looked it up. But my thoughts are, apart from the obvious, you know, the physical, sexual, there's also emotional abuse, which kind of seems to me like a very broad term, very umbrella kind of broad term. And as you say, Janet, it seems to the characteristic seems to be a disrespect of the recipient of the or the target of the abuse, and a lack of empathy in how the abusive behavior can affect them. And it's like a total disregard of boundaries. But then I guess boundaries is something that we're all so very hazy about, seeing as we live in a culture that is where our boundaries are as an individual and a collective are being constantly crossed and abused, and more every day. So yeah, and the question is, you know, some of us are more sensitive than others. And I don't know, in my mind, it's just something that I've not really come to any kind of definition, because there are so many nuances on both sides. The being the recipient of someone's abuse, and being the abuser. You know, when is someone just having a bad day? Or when are they being abusive? You know, when do they get out of the bed wrong side? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. Lorna, do you want to add your bit in?
Why not? Thank you both. I mean, I agree with everything. I concur with Janet and Lucy, and like you say there, Lucy, about having a bad day, but I think when it continues, when that sort of behavior continues, it becomes abuse and not just a bad day. So that's my personal, and I too have been the abused and the abuser. Unconsciously, in many ways, I didn't even know it until You know, I had that breakdown and having to, I think I said before that the biggest wake-up call for me was accusing an abuser with this finger and being told there was the 3 pointing back was a big wake-up call for me, and I still stand by that. And then taking on that guilt, realizing that I too had been an abuser, and I think that I've been banging on a lot about this recently, about the first 7 years of life, and when the body holds the score from, you know, like maybe our generation of when, you know, I've heard people of my age saying, oh, you know, I got hit, didn't bother me, but their life's a bit of a mess. So, you know, where do you draw that line? Like you said, Janet, it's a broad topic and it's huge, in fact, because Lucy, you said it as well, that some of us are more sensitive to it than others. And I find that, and I did this myself, you know, I talk to little children like they're adults, and they don't know what I'm trying to portray across to them. And I watch it around me a lot recently, how children then get labelled, or they're getting medicated now even for acting out, because there's adult children subtly, well, what I would suggest is abuse, subtly abusing them, but that behaviour is deemed as okay. And even like our social, and I'm not knocking social services, yet I watch situations and I go, wow, why, you know, why can't this system help out here more? And, you know, it's all about money and funding and the whole thing. And it's horrible when you have to sit and you can't sort of intervene and help out and do things because people don't see that that's what's going on. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that's my sort of blurb about it.
No. I know my definition is, I don't know where I picked this up, but there's two types of abuse. One is sort of the invasion type, where you get hit or sexually attacked or robbed, or, you know, that sort of general attack at you. And then there's this other, which is neglect and abandonment, you know, where you're just neglected or ostracized, or, you know, and it's funny as that one, because it's like nothing's happening to you, but you're excluded. And that's a really funny sort of abuse, that. And I also think it can be very subjective. You know, Lucy, you were talking about they're just having a bad day, and I'm talking about somebody who feels that they're being abused, you know, and somebody could just be like talking to them and they perceive that they're being shouted at, for instance, you know, and it's somebody's being passionate rather than aggressive. And that's a funny thing, because I have a lot of experience of that. You know, my passion can sometimes come across as being aggressive, and sometimes people tell me, you know, that they feel attacked, which is, you know, and then yeah, and then so I think for me, abuse, and I experienced both. I experienced being physically hit and also being neglected, you know, ignored, really. And I just wonder how many children actually experience that. And it's a form neglect. Abuse for me is a form of violence. So, you know, even if you're in a car and you're swearing and cursing as you're driving along, it's like the whole car's full of this abuse, and then abusing yourself. You know, there's this being abusive to yourself. And I suppose you could really like drill it right down to putting food in your body that, you know, or anything in your body that, you know, is not in your best interests. You know, one chocolate biscuit too many. I mean, you know, where does the line end? You know, it's a weird one. And yet I think it's difficult enough for us to deal with it on the overt level, let alone those more subtler planes. So has anybody got anything else to add to this bit about the definition? Anybody want to?
Sundy, I just wanted to say that it's interesting that you have been very expressive. In my family home, my mother particularly didn't want to upset the apple cart in any way with big expressions, whether it was passion or anger, complaining or talking about anything embarrassing. So I grew up as a teenager feeling like I had a zip over my mouth, that I was not allowed to express myself. And it took a long, long while to get over that. And I've never seen that as abuse, but it was control, it was, really interesting that my mother, Anna, would be displeased if someone stepped out of line in our family. There were just the four of us, my brother, my mother and father. But I was definitely brought up to be a people pleaser. And then you kind of fall into this trap if you're living with somebody who tends to be abusive or has a short fuse or whatever. You're not going to stand up to it. That's what I experienced when I was younger. I didn't know how to stand up to it, how to express myself or say that I was hurt or anything, And yeah, where do you draw the line? I don't know. But I think maybe like part of it is you're either on the kind and loving side or you're on the I'm not really caring about you side, But I think my mum loved me, but she was just doing the best she could from her point of view,
Yeah, that's all we can ever do as a parent, right? The best we do the best we can with the knowledge we had at the time. And what keeps coming to me in this conversation is I look back at my childhood and I wasn't hit, I wasn't physically abused in any way, but there was a lot of dysfunctional behavior with an alcoholic father and I would say quite a narcissistic mother. And yet there was no talk growing up. There was no talk in the wider environment about the effects or even that this behavior was dysfunctional. It was just what I grew up with. And only later, in therapy and my own research and things that I realized that actually, hang on a minute, that was not normal. That was not a normal family life. And maybe that explains why I'm like I am or why I think like I do. But I do wonder if we put a little bit too much emphasis, collectively, not necessarily we here in this Zoom, but collectively on the effects, whether we focus a little bit too much, because previous generations or even us when we were younger, we just kind of took this behavior in our childhood in our stride. I'm not saying like real hardcore abuse we would take it, although some people do, of course. I'm just talking about the kind of dysfunctional parenting, and as the guy who wrote Angela's Ashes, I can never remember his name. He said your perfect childhood is not worth your while because you don't. There are no opportunities for growth if you have a perfect childhood. So this one is, I know it's about the effects of abuse, and the next one will be the gifts. But I think if we focus, I do sometimes wonder if we focus on the negative effects of our childhood, that we can become, we can almost kind of be self-fulfilling prophecies. We can imagine things that are not necessarily there or even have to be there. Maybe I'm not articulating myself very well.
I
just think you are very well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to follow on, Lorna? Because I'm champing at the bit here. Do you want to go?
Do you want to go too? I was like, yes. No, you're articulating very well, because I've gone through this obviously when I was writing my book, because my book's only a small book, but it took me years to do it because I was in that place. It was like I was angry about stuff. So I was coming from a place of anger myself at other people because the effects of that alcoholism within the family were rearing up, and the memories, well, I've been told, were distorted. Yet that's not what I was trying to portray. And I was just thinking about this recently, Lucy, as well, because I was thinking, I do have this obsessive nature of going down rabbit holes, and I could get stuck down there with whatever I'm looking at. So when I was thinking about this abuse, I think, God, yeah, you can go to the negative a lot, because you can get stuck in there. You're stuck in that traumatic place, maybe. And within the mind, really, for me, it's been about my mind, and the thoughts can repeat, much to the disgust of other people as well, because I don't use it against anybody else, yet it can seem that way to them, or it can feel that way to them. Because you said there about articulating, if I don't articulate myself in a way that they can hear it, then maybe they just don't have the ears to receive it in that moment, about how I see it. Because recently, again, I've been told of other incidences where I was hit, and I have no recollection of these. These are from other people saying that, and this is like out with my family. It was friends' parents thrashing me because we had done something wrong in the eyes of the parents, and this was somebody else's parents, and I was like, really? I can't remember that. But I think maybe you just shut down at these times as well. And I know for sure, like myself with therapy and everything else, that I come under that bracket of being highly sensitive. On the outside, I didn't appear to be that way, because I could shout. Janet, you said you had the zip. There's no zip in Lorna's mouth. It was very wide open. Still is. And it just depends how it's coming out of it, whatever's coming out of it. And I do have to sometimes stop and think, closed mouth keeps a wise head, because other people might not hear what I'm trying to portray. So yeah, I do think we can get stuck. I mean, trauma seems to be quite a buzzword as well just now, and I feel we can get stuck a little bit in it, and without moving through it. Maybe I'll hand it over to you, Sundy.
Yeah, thanks, Lorna. Yeah, well, you said that, Lucy, I wrote it down. Is there any functional parenting? Because it's like you say, like we have to have some, is it Leonard Cohen that said where the crack is, where the light gets in or out, or whatever?
Rumi
that said that. Why did I Leonard Cohen? Anyway, it took me years to realize that I'd been abused, because everybody around me, it was just normal. And that was hard, that for me, and we're talking about the effects of us on it, and it was a big thought shift for me to actually recognize that Dad hitting me had been abusive behavior, and also forcing me to work and controlling and dominating, and he'd done it with all the family. And he was born 1911, and I just think it was that time. And so nowadays, I think, I remember, it wasn't too long ago when you would actually see a parent smacking a child in public, and you think, and now you sort of, as an older person, you think, and then I remember hitting my own, and there was always a little smidge of shame. I carried shame around it. I couldn't understand why I was always so agitated. And there's a bigger conversation around the role of women in domestication and patriarchal systems, and how it doesn't serve us to be stuck in a box with 2 small children and no other adult company for several hours a day. And where am I going with this? And so the effects on me were quite startling, I think, to realize that not only had I been abused, and the effects on my nervous system, for a start off, I was very jumpy. There was stimulus noises that will have me even now to this day going, alert for what might come. And it took me a long time my coping strategy was to keep busy, to keep moving, to not be stationary, because if I was stationary, somebody would ask me to do something, so my time wasn't my own. And I was always on call as a young adult, a young person. And then, of course, I think those habits become ingrained, cellular level, cellular memory, and you get married or whatever, you have relationship. And then strangely, I found that when I look back, I replicated it. I remember saying to my now ex-husband, aren't you going to hit me then? Expecting to be treated like Dad had treated me. And I was putting myself in that old frame. And now that I'm estranged from my adult children, I can so see patterns that my belief system, my energetics almost invite stuff towards me. I was Gobby Gilchrist, and it fascinates me that I became louder and bolder rather than as different to you, Janet. And I have got a sister who's quieter than me. She, why some people hide from abuse and some people fight back, that fascinates me. As kids, we obviously learned that in those first few years. It's a bit of too long a story to share here, but I did a little bit of a shamanic journey, and actually got to see the seed of when I realized that I was going to fight back. I saw myself fighting back as a 2-year-old with my dad and saying, I'll get you back, you bastard. And I'm amazed that I'm cheery. I've got a cheery disposition, and yet I was really, I've got marks on my body from where people have damaged me, and all this is my left side, and it looks like my right side, but of course this was the side that got the clatters, and this side is the side that I now carry a lot of disc problems, shoulder, jaw, head, it's all this side. And because a right-handed clout comes onto your left side if you're facing somebody. So yeah, I had a lovely childhood, and it was rough and physical, and I took that pattern into my own family, and had to deal with the guilt and shame of that, and the absolute realizations. I think, who was it? Was it you, Lorna, that said, it's a shock when you realize that you've been abusive?
And I became quite depressed when I realised that myself. And, and occasionally I'll catch yourself sometimes in our family, and I'll go, whoa, we shout through walls, it's mom, or the conversation is shouted through walls. And I go, I have to walk through to a room and say, I'll wait till you come through and we can have a conversation. And of course I'm seen as being weird sometimes for saying things like that still, because that's just, it's that loud noise shouting. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and a family member said to me that they still waking up at specific times if they hear a door banging, and they think it's like my ex-partner. They think it's him coming home because it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're waking up with a fright going, yeah, and they didn't know why this kept happening. And they're in therapy right now, and they're going through the PTSD stage from the head, and it's bringing up a lot of this stuff, like you said, the shamanic journey took you back, she's getting some therapy for that. And so it runs deep. It does run deep. And I tried to be more manly in my growing up, more masculine, and it's my right side that's been damaged. In the car crash I was in, everything seems to be on my right side. Even still, I still get issues on the right side. I don't know why, but it's trying to be more masculine, because it was more, if I wanted to get anything done, or I'd have to be louder than anybody else, bigger than everybody else, just stronger than everybody else, and trying to retreat a little bit now and be softer and gentler. It's a hard task for me to to be that way and soften my voice, because I was not used to roaring and shouting. You were Gobby Gilchrist, I was loud Lorna, you know, Loony Lorna in college, and that was when in my 40s they called me Loony Lorna. I mean, God, it's like, wow, these things just follow you around. I mean, I can laugh about it, but what's seeing the effects now running through the family can be sore at times.
Yeah, what you were both saying, Sandy and Lorna, about how the body kind of remembers. You were saying somebody, Lorna, you know, somebody wakes up every night at 3 because they're expecting, you know, the body's used to this. I've noticed recently, or it's come to my attention recently, that most mornings I wake up and I can sense how the day's going to go. Now, whether I'm creating that, how the day's going, or whether I have a kind of a premonition, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of both, who knows? But there's this, sometimes I have this sense of anxiety, like dread, like something awful's going to happen, or something awful's happened to somebody that I care about. And it's very visceral. I feel it in my body. And I don't know if it's a premonition or too much coffee or something, but it's a real definite feeling. And I made a connection really recently that this feeling that I've had on and off my whole life, it goes back to my childhood. And not knowing whether my mother's going to blow up at my father any moment, or my father's going to do something really freaking weird, like saw his armchair in half, or, you know, this, when you're a child and your parents are acting unpredictably, and not in a nice, you know, nice, ooh, surprise kind of unpredictable, but a huge blazing row or a snap. You'd say something innocent, and you get snapped at, or just weird behavior from your parents. And of course, when you're a child and the adults around you, or the situation around you is really, really dysfunctional, and that's only as an adult that I can make that judgment. But as a child, you think that's normal. But I think there's something deep down within us that knows it's not normal, but we don't have the world experience, or the emotional the emotional tools or wherewithal to say, actually, you know, Dad, that's really out of order, or Mum, don't say those kind of things to me, or this situation is fucked up. We go, what's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? You know, what we put it on ourselves because we have to as children. That's how we survive in a way. And that, for me, that effect of the abuse as a broad term, of this dysfunctional behavior of my parents, that's been the biggest, the most difficult, challenging effect, is constantly, what's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? You know, when I meet this poor behavior from others in my adult life, I always turn it back on myself. What have I done wrong? What's wrong with me? You know, why don't they like me? And I'm finding that's a tough one to get past there. I think abuse from as a child, that kind of insidious abuse, that, you know, obviously the more extreme is tangible, you know, being hit, being sexually abused. I think it comes down to, it really erodes our self-love, our self-esteem. You know, because when you're a child, when you're a little child, and you see a mirror, or even when you see little children, they see a mirror, they go up, they go, oh, la la la, you know, they don't look at their reflection and go, oh, how ugly, or your bum looks big, or oh God, have I got another wrinkle? You know, there's not this judgment when little kids, they just love their image. They love it, and they start to dance and make silly faces and things. But
So true.
I think we all ought to do that. Can we just have one of those?
Hey, yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
it.
my granddaughters do. That's what they do on FaceTime. They're not interested in anything I've got to say. They're too busy looking at themselves on the phone. They're enjoying their own reflection.
I wonder, I'm realising, Janet, I need to come and ask you about that. But anyway, just a quick intersection here is how many of us use laughter to discharge the discomfort? Yeah, we use laughter to sort of say something horrible and then laugh at the end of it as if, I've done that a lot,
But
Anyway.
I know why I did that because, sorry, yeah, Janet, I want to hear what you've got to say too. It was just like, stop that crying. Stop crying. You don't need to be crying. I used to cry because I got called names by the boys in school. I was called Big Lorna, and they'd grab my pigtails and treat me like a horse. And I hated it. And I'd go running home crying about it. And it was just like, stop that crying. You shouldn't be crying about things like that. Just you make fun of yourself. So I learned to make fun of myself before anybody else could, so it wouldn't hurt so much, because I was that highly sensitive. I was extremely sensitive to it all. It was just ridiculous sometimes when I look back and I think of actually really how highly sensitive I was. Anyway, that's just.
I wanted to say something about like us four here who are discussing this, in a lot of detail. Something has happened in our adult life that has helped us to look back and understand. And I think that, I had a really good childhood in many, many ways, and the abuse was not bad or anything, but to understand how I may have been controlled and, programmed to a certain extent really helped me to understand, hey, I've got to learn to express better, I've got to learn, I really want to be authentic, blah, 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 But it was through my first marriage really that that didn't come out until, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s, really, that, hey, there's more to life than this and more to life than being this way. But I'm just curious about you ladies, what kind of started you really looking at yourselves, and understanding, oh, I'm acting that way because,
And maybe, Janet, that's the next one, the gifts, because
yeah, right. Okay.
It definitely is like this. There is gifts in this, so when we have buried, dug into this a bit more, the effects of, then we can definitely talk about that next time. Yeah. Because I'm sort of scribbling some notes here, but one of the questions that I've got written down is I think we're talking about it quite openly, and I know that my dad's dead now, and I know I got complete with my dad. And I'd also like to add that Dad had a go at trying to change his pattern, because he used to say to me, Sunday, if I start to be angry with you, can you say just a minute, Dad, or something like, yeah, right, I'm not going to do that, Dad. No, I didn't say that to him. No way am I going to. When he's getting a head of steam up, there was no way. But, and he was an odd man. He used to tell tales. I was praised for overcoming adversity. I got so anything that was a real challenge and I conquered it, I got some praise from him, which was, so he would, if he'd been mean to me, he would, at dinner parties, he would tell people that how I'd avoided being hit by him. He was proud of me in some ways. What I want to ask us, before I get off on a tangent at my own thing, how difficult has it been, or still is it difficult? Because you've written a book, Lorna, how difficult is it to come out about our abuse story and the people in our lives who have been abusive towards us, and also our own abuse to others? How difficult was it, or is it still difficult to bring it out into the public realms?
Well, I can talk to that. It was very difficult because, my truth as I see it now is not other people's truths. And I hope my mum doesn't, if she's watching this, she can forgive me for talking about it. But myself and her had a discussion because she said she felt depressed when she read my book, that I hadn't told the truth about her smacking me, but the word we didn't use smacked, we used the word thrashed, which does give it a harsher tone, doesn't it? And I sat and I listened to her about that. I said, "Do you want to talk about it?" And so she still adamant. I said, "But Mum, we had many conversations around it before." I said, I suspect it's because it's out in the public. You maybe have taken it personally. And that's not why this book was written. The book was written for other reasons than to hopefully impact and help other people who have maybe experienced similar journeys, and for them to know that there is, through my own experience, that they can get help themselves. And from that, our relationship changed, actually. I mean, the word abuse wasn't taken in there. I said, as a 3-year-old, like you had mentioned earlier, Lucy, I couldn't articulate how I was feeling in that moment. You know, I didn't know the words. And so when I grew up, I had to learn the words to express that. And I did some like active imagination through Carl Jung work to go back into that scene to change the energy in it. You know, you can't change what happened, but I could change how I felt about it. And that's so I could express that to my mother. I said, can you not see it from the child's point of view of saying, you know, you're getting physically hit and you're by this person that you love, and you don't know what's going on or what's happening. Why? Because 5 minutes later you were in a place of bliss, and then this person that you love and adore is belting you or thrashing you, and then everybody's watching, so there's embarrassment, humiliation, all that sort of stuff flowing through this little body, and then you're taken on the knee and saying, well, it was for your own good. So you immediately think that this has happened because it's for your own good. So, and like you said there, Lucy, as well, you think it's you're bad. I must be bad if that happened to me. And I said, that's all I was trying to put across. It wasn't having a slate, or a go at you. And I think she realized it then, and it was like, there was this sort of relief, that we had this conversation, because like the old Lorna, we wouldn't have been able to have a conversation like that. It would have been confrontation, and we'd have been shouting at each other, So there was certainly a shift there, and so it's good that you can do that. And so it was a relief for me, because my whole body, even in that conversation, was in reaction. From head to foot, I was inside me. I was, I had learned very well to act it out like I was okay on the outside. And the inside, it's not what was going on yet, because it was still that fear and that terror came back up in me to be able to have that conversation without it being a conflict and a lot of shouting. So yeah, coming out into the public with it, and I'm going to be relaunching the book, because I've hidden it away because of these conversations, because I didn't want to upset anybody. That's there's a saying, we're not judged on our intentions, we're judged on our actions. And because I've written that book, a lot of people think that I shouldn't have written it, or not, because that was my actions. They're not seeing the reasons behind me writing it. So opinions, everybody's got one, haven't they, and judgments, and unfortunately people are judging you on what they think they know about you, not on what you're trying to do. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
It does. I feel like I'm hogging the conversation. Lucy.
Well, this is about as public as I've ever gone about the subject from a personal point of view. Yeah, it's not comfortable, because for some reason there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of shame and guilt. I think that was a lot of the programming I got as a child, was to feel guilty, especially if I expressed anger, or I think actually looking back, it was more like boundaries, which maybe came out as anger, or being passionate. And I was told I'm wicked and awful, and even just a couple of years ago, like in my 50s. My mother's telling me I'm unkind and I'm awful and this kind of thing, and it's I now realize that she's projecting something onto me that really wasn't in my mind or in my intention at all. It's entirely her story, which she then projects onto me, and then calls me wicked or unkind or awful for it. And she's not happy until I'm crying. And to get to that point, she really has to emotionally beat me up. So to publicly talk about these things is quite difficult for me, because it's accompanied by all this guilt and shame, which was instilled. But it's refreshing to be able to talk about it publicly. Of course, I can talk to a friend, a close friend, or my partner, or a therapist, but to openly talk about it in like this, or even write a book, Lorna, wow, that I have this secret fantasies of doing that, of getting all out on paper and the written word and putting it out there, like, because in my family it was all about elephants in the room. When growing up in the 70s and 80s, alcoholism wasn't something you talked about. It was something shameful. It was something you hid. You couldn't have your friends around from school because they'd see your drunk father and he'd embarrass, he'd say something really embarrassing, or there'd be a hell of awful tension in the house. So it's in my family, there's a lot that's not communicated. And I think that's really bloody unhealthy. And when I have tried to communicate it, I usually get shut down by a brother or my mother. So yeah, it's difficult to talk about this publicly, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway, because it's one of those things that's actually really normal. I don't think anybody's walking this earth has not experienced some form of abuse, really.
Yeah,
it seems to be part of the human condition.
It does. And I think it's Brené Brown that talks about, shame it needs an abuse, it needs darkness, and it needs secrecy for it to continue, and I think the age that I am now, wouldn't it be lovely if all the family went, oh yeah, we have got that running through our family. How long have we been hitting each other and yelling at each other? If there was that level of awareness. And for me, I felt like I was betraying the family by speaking up. And I started to write on Facebook, and I was in that throes of, they did this and they did that, and they said this, and those sort of like childlike. And as I've expressed it more and more, it's become more, I can see it for what it is. Everybody's in a wounded mess and we're just passing pain on between each other. I've got so many examples of that. And I wanted some validation because I wasn't getting it anywhere else. I wanted somebody to say, yeah, Sundy, that is awful that is happening. But the first time somebody said that's awful that's happening to you, this was about my adult children disappearing and not speaking to me, and me effectively being ostracized out of my family of creation. And I wanted some validation. As soon as somebody said that, I could self-validate then myself and say, yeah, it's bloody awful what's going on for me, and I was noisy about it, and sometimes it takes. Somebody said to me that when you're drowning, you are noisy. I thought that was lovely. Yeah, people are, when we're drowning in our lives, we are, But my mum used to protect my dad, and I've got a few family who follow me on Facebook, and I did one Christmas, I think she probably had a bit to drink. She said, you're bringing shame on our family. And interesting that, isn't it? That you can't really talk about what goes on behind closed doors without somebody. And why should we hide it away? It's not okay that we get hit and yelled at. It's just not. And I because I've sorted myself out around it, I'm not hiding my own indiscretions, my own aggression and transgressions against myself by hitting other people and shouting at them. You know, I've cleaned it up. I still can have a little bit of, oh God, that's awful. You know, do I really have to tell somebody that I've done that? But coming clean feels like the healthiest, and just saying, yeah, you know, I was like that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. You know, the hoponono. And I think that's what it takes.
And the more we understand ourselves, the more we know we're being the observer of all of that, Sunday, you know, and we are more than that, you know, the observer part of us, the part of us that really loves us, if we let it, is more than all our mistakes and everything. And we've got to learn to forgive our own mistakes and those that came before us, I think. And a lot of it is to do with not feeling good enough, feeling insecure, you know, whether it's us or what we've received, you know. But it's not who we really want to be. And we are more than that.
It's interesting that humans damage each other, don't we? And ourselves in the process, because there's no way that I can hit or yell at somebody without harming myself, because we're all connected.
And would you say there's always hurt behind it, you know?
Yeah.
It's hurt, fear, insecurity, whatever, frustration too, I suppose.
And that pegs back to none of us are taught how to process our feelings as children. And we do, and you know, we're fighting lumps in the playground. You know, there's this fight going on over here and there's people watching it, and I don't know if it's still like that.
Well, I think it is, and it's still like that up here in the I forgot to say earlier on, I'm in the Highlands of Scotland, and we were talking about this clan culture that we have here. It's still running through the veins of it, of people. If one village wants to batter hell out of the other, they tend to do it in football still, the Scots, and you know, it's like they'll one team will have this hate for another team because it comes from a specific village, which is ridiculous. It could be a bit of banter as well. There can be a bit of fun around that, but like, it's always, where do you draw the line in it? Where does that become? My granddaughter was telling me, she's 7, which I thought, oh, well, you know, we are making inroads maybe and getting healthier, that every morning when they go into school, there's baskets. And they have to take these stones, and the little baskets have got faces like emojis on them. Happy, sad, tired, all these just little emojis on them. And they put their stones in to say how they're feeling as they arrive in school every morning. And she was a bit upset at the time, so she was just like, there's one right in the middle, like when you don't know how you feel. And she said, I put mine in there because she doesn't know how she's feeling. I was like, oh God. And but I thought, well, yeah, but maybe we're making a little bit of progress then, if that's the case, within the education system. Anyway, I don't know about a home, but you know, I certainly learn more through there's 2 granddaughters on the way just now, but the little one that's here, I certainly see her as one of my biggest teachers in my learnings. You know, there's no point regretting that I couldn't see it for my own children coming to teach me. That's sort of, I don't have regret about that. Sometimes there might be a little bit of remorse, but it's now in the grandchildren I see that just we're here to just guide them and learn more from them. My personal opinion is to learn more from the children, because they're like the elders of the universe. But I think somebody likened them to that, and I feel that's where to start is with the children, because they're the future, aren't they? And we start helping them with the mothers and or the main caregivers. You've got to be so careful with how you say things these days, and the main caregiver of the child. We start re-educating so that they're unlearning a lot of the stuff that's been conditioned within them. It can help to guide in a new way, perhaps, so that this abuse doesn't continue.
No, it's remarkable that we're having this conversation. I mean, I couldn't imagine my mother at our age talking about this kind of thing. you know, or women of her generation. So it's all a step forward, isn't it? And I do wonder, Sunday, very quickly, well, just put a little drop in there. Our adult children that are strangers, they're so furious with us. They're so furious with. I mean, I'm furious with my mother, but I was not to the point where I'll estrange her. But so I wonder if it's a good thing in a way. Once if they can manage to work through it, if they do work through it, they may make huge strides in their development.
Yeah, I think so. They've almost given themselves this huge problem, and it's not going to go away. You know, they're going to have to deal with it somehow. And there's a lady that I haven't really had a happy run with recently, but I found one of her writings, and she was saying that, you know, estrangement isn't a cure. You've got to deal with you know, it's a temporary holding space, if you like. And because the problem is still there that you have to resolve in yourself, with or without your parent. And anyway, just we've got a comment from Gwen Atkinson, and we might just have this. Thank you, Gwen. And we might just have this as a wrapping up thing and linking it into our next conversation. And she says, I think our parents, and more so the generations before us, carried so many secrets, which we too carry, I suppose, at that cellular level. And if we don't release that tie, that energetic cord, much of that was because of oppression, inequality, and suppression. Because I think we probably are, I don't know, are we freer than we were? I don't know. But yeah, that thank you for that comment, Gwen. So maybe as a wrap up, we just would you like to say what you've realized, what you're taking away from this call?
I didn't expect to be talking about my childhood and then did right from the beginning. But I think what I'm seeing is that we're developing our understanding of all this a lot more than previous generations have. I just wish that children were taught how to relate to others or how to relate to themselves as a priority over anything else, if not by their parents, by school. But I think it's going to take a while for that. It's so important. It's the most important thing in our lives, I think.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I think talking about this on this platform right here today has been the greatest help right now for me, as I'm going through some issues with my family. Just to be able to articulate it, and knowing that it's on a public platform like YouTube, it will be, it's kind of taken the sting. It takes the sting out of the effect of the abuse. In sharing it and talking about it publicly, not just to a friend or a therapist or something. Just to be able to say, yeah, this happened to me and it was shit, and this is how it's affected me, but I'm still here and I'm still laughing. So yeah, that's a big takeaway for me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy, and thank you. I saw the emotion in you, and thank you for allowing us to hold you in that.
I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, Lucy, I admire you so much. I really do. I'm literally crying here because it's like, wow, that's big. That's so big. I feel it is so big. Anyway, what you just said, it's like, because I'm not there yet. I'm not in that fullest place that I could be around it. And because I'm moving into a new place with my family right now, with my eldest daughter en route right now, arriving home after the family tragedy in her life. And I know we're moving into something different as a family together as well. And for me to be sitting here in a public talking about this stuff, but I know it's not liked by others, shall I say. I think you've done amazingly to say a lot more than I could say. And even in my book, I kept it light to protect rather than coming out to the fullest. And that's part of being the Highlander as well. I think we slip it under the carpet much more than other areas. This is what I've noticed, especially in Scotland. The Highlands and the Islands tend to hide that elephant. A big carpet. Anyway, so I'm just taking away that admiration for you, especially Lucy, you too, Sundy, and what you've done, and Janet, the women you're helping, and the families that you're helping. Well, kudos to you. That's just, and I feel very blessed to be with you women in Synergy and the tent. And yeah, I'm going to shut up. Thank you.
I'm taking away.
Sundy, I know we're running over a little bit. I just realised I'm resting my phone on a really good book called What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. You know, we shouldn't be asking what the heck are you doing? We should be asking what happened to you to make you do those things, you know? So I just wanted to share that with people.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't even touch on like who needs the most help, the victim or the oppressor. Everybody. Yeah, what I'm taking away from this is just how courageous everybody who's ever written a book about their family stuff, whether it's under a fake name, because that's how people get it out there. You know, this is needed because we're not going to be connected unless we start to talk about all the stuff and be okay that we were abused and did abuse or were violent, and you know, and let's out it, let's unbunk the shame, and so that we can be vulnerable and strong, and you know, make a real difference in our communities and families with this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So thank you, everybody. We could have talked for another hour, I think, and we will talk for another hour. We've got a third one coming up, but it'd probably be in the new year now. So if you've watched In the Silver Tent, thank you so much. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there's many more lovely videos on there for you to feast your questions on. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.